please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, drop your comments down below. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the audio only platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. All of that kind of stuff helps with the algorithms. Obviously, we're trying to grow the pod. Any kind of engagement is greatly appreciated. Let's get into the big game of the weekend then. For you, Johns, not the big game of the weekend in general. So that's Newcastle 1, Arsenal 0. It's two Premier League defeats back to back? I think it is. I think you got a League Cup win in between, but it's 2 Premier League defeats in a row. 2 away defeats as well, and your away form has been, arguably better than your home form in the last 12 to 18 months. So, bit of a surprise, I guess. Kind of not, because Newcastle away is a really hard game. You started quite decently actually, from what I saw, but then kind of against the run of play, Gordon smacks across first time, completely takes out both your centre backs, and Isak manages to head it in. And then I know you had a few little half chances here and there. I think Rice had the best chance right before the end, right? We really should have scored from a great Saka cross. But apart from that, you kind of huffed and puffed and didn't really do too much for the rest of the game. First of all, what did you make of the performance? Because you haven't shared your thoughts on both games, because obviously last week you were out. But yeah, what's your thoughts on this game, and what's your thoughts on the 2 games in general?
I think it was much of the same across both of the fixtures, really. I don't think we got outplayed in either of the matches. I think they were relatively even games. And I think both the attack and the defence were not good enough, right? I think from the attacking point of view, I'm more disappointed because in both games we haven't scored. And it doesn't look like we're going to get close to scoring. I mean, we've had very little threat on goal. And, as good as our defence has been, prior to the last few games, they're not good enough to just continually pull us out of problems all the time. And our attack needs to contribute more to the, to the overall result of the match. And I think in both games, our attack has been poor. And I don't mean from a point of view of not being able to convert chances. I think we just haven't created anything, and we've looked creatively kind of out of ideas. All of the different things that we've thrown at people, they've all flopped on their faces. And it's not as if we're coming up against 2 unbelievably informed teams necessarily, right? Like in that they're just going to completely make you change the way you play. I think Bournemouth definitely are really good. And, we've seen that now with their last fixture result as well. But it's not as if they stopped us from playing our game. We just could not, for the life of us, get anything together to really cause them any kind of threat. And I think it's the same thing for the Newcastle game. As you said, we had probably, I'm going to say maybe 2 chances, 3 good chances, decent chances that we should have scored, with Rice's one being the best of the chances. But that's not enough, really, right? We need to be winning that game, which means we need to be scoring 2 goals, because the goal that we conceded, I'm not really going to place blame at anyone's feet. I think the ball from Gordon was unbelievable. I think if you look at, defensively speaking, Gabriel probably could have got a little bit tighter than he was, but I don't think it was a major mistake from him either. And I think the header was what can you really do about it from a goalkeeping perspective as well? So I can't really put too much blame on our defence for letting that goal in, much like, I guess, kind of the goal against Bournemouth. Because obviously we were down to 10 men and everyone was knackered at that point. I kind of understand, right? So from that point of view, we're going to be conceding a goal to Newcastle. We need to be able to go and score 2 or 3. And we didn't get anywhere near close to doing that. And that's what really worries me about this. And I think the substitutions that were made as well, I don't see very much changing in the way that we're playing right now. I think we're going to need a big wake-up call, either in the form of Martin Odegaard coming back, or, Saka or Martinelli just taking off in form. We're going to need some sort of big shake-up, really, to get out of this funk that we're in right now. Because from my point of view, it's not as if it's a fluke, unlucky loss here, unlucky loss there. This seems like a systemic problem where we just don't have any attacking threat, unless basically Saka puts our whole team on his back and goes and scores for us. So overall, very unhappy with the performance, and not to overdo it, but I think it's something genuinely to worry about, like in terms of it not being a freak result. Freak results you can deal with. You can say, all right, let's chalk that one up to an unbelievable performance from Newcastle, or let's chalk that up to, you know, crazy refereeing decisions or whatever else. But I don't think you can look at this game and blame anything but us. And that just points to a systemic problem. And I think even the last game against Bournemouth, right? Yes, we were down to down to 10 men or whatever, but I guess the problem still exists, if that makes sense, right? Like we still had no attacking threat. So overall, yeah, very upset. Well, not very upset, but very disappointed with it and worried, I'll be honest with you, moving forward.
Yeah, I actually got it. I forgot that you obviously played Liverpool in between those two results. But yeah, it's 2 defeats in 3 in the Premier League. The Liverpool
Of
one,
course.
the Liverpool one.
The
I
Liverpool
think
one is where we got sent off. Yeah, but again, attacking threat was shy.
Yeah, I mean the Liverpool was 2-2, right? You probably. I was chatting with Lincoln about it last week, and the whole chat was obviously around Arsenal sitting deep in the second half, and he was like, "We didn't go deep enough," and I kind of agree with him. I don't believe in the hype that you guys went deep in the second half of the Liverpool game. I believe you probably should have gone even deeper to hold on to the result, because they scored obviously from a counter with that Mo Salah goal. So, but yeah, I mean, in last year, it wouldn't be a big problem if you conceded. I mean, your defense was super miserly, but obviously every now and again you conceded, and then your attack was able to just outfire teams. You knew you'd have enough big chances that you could still go and win 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, and more. So I agree with you. Right now, the big issue seems to be your attack is just not functioning. It doesn't seem to be, and it's understandable if you take a big cog out like Odegaard, but I think what's happened is Arteta's like tried to play around with the players that are left too much, and now it kind of it's completely muddied the waters of your attack, and so that brings me to a big kind of talking point from this game was obviously in the midweek. Wanyeri played really well, scored a banger against Preston, and he just generally looked really, really neat and tidy. Gave you that kind of mini Odegaard kind of vibe with his performance, I would say, against Preston. So there were big calls for him to come in and play on the weekend. He obviously only came on quite late in the game, and Trossard was preferred still in that kind of Odegaard position. Why do you think Arteta's continuing to go with Trossard over Wanyeri when it looks quite obvious that Wanyeri's a closer profile fit to Odegaard? Do you think it's purely the experience thing, or do you just think he's kind of being a bit stubborn with that decision? Because first of all, what do you think? Do you think Wanyeri should have started, or are you happy to see Trossard in that position?
I don't think Trossard should ever start as a 10 for us. I think he's proven now that he's not really good enough in that position. But I can't blame Arteta for not starting Nwaneri. We're talking about like an 18-year-old coming up against Newcastle, who have like one of the most, let's say, high stamina, high tempo midfields in the league. Right? You've got Joe Linton, Bruno G, and I think, was it Sean Longstaff or whoever it was that started in that position? You've got Joe Willock. You've got all these people that are going to be trying to overrun you. And to have like an 18-year-old essentially in there, or like a 17-year-old, can't even remember how old he is, but I know it's bloody young.
17.
To have him in there trying to deal with all of those players in one of I think one of his first handful of starts in the league for us, I think would be a bold decision to make. And if it doesn't turn out well, and Nwaneri gets overrun in there, or he gets injured or whatever else, we all blame Arteta and say, "Oh, you've started him against one of the hardest teams to play away." So I can understand why he wouldn't do that, and why he wouldn't play Trossard in that position. Why he would play Trossard in that position and not Nwaneri. But my big problem with that is just go back to the transfer market, like the transfer window. If we weren't confident in Nwaneri's ability to play a proper backup to that position, why did we get rid of Fabio Vieira? Why did we get rid of Emil Smith-Rowe? why did we get rid of even Reece Nelson? So that's the part that confuses me, because I understand that Nwaneri is young and to start him against Newcastle is a big decision to make. But if we know that he's essentially going to be the second best player in that position, because it's clear that Trossard is not a good 10, then why did we, if we're not confident in Nwaneri to start there, why did we go and get rid of all those other people that could have been good backups to Martin Odegaard? Because I've heard all this other stuff about how Marino could play in the 10 and he's played it there before and whatever else. Okay, but why didn't we play him there then? And why did we continue to play Partey at right back? Why are we doing what we're doing? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm not going to bash Arteta for choosing Trossard over Nwaneri in the 10, but I am going to bash him for why he even needs to put Trossard in there at all. Why can't he put somebody else in there? Why can't we find out another way of doing that? Because it's very clear that Trossard is not a creative player. He's not an assist getter. He's a goal scorer. And he's best coming in off the left or possibly going straight up top by himself. And again, that's another one. Why wouldn't you put Havertz in the 10 then and let Trossard run off of him? Cause some issues for the Newcastle defence. Like there's so many whys about the way that we lined up, but I don't think the Nwaneri to Trossard one is really my biggest why.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Trossard conundrum is part of the bigger issue, like you're saying. It's like shuffling around too many players, and I think the Nwaneri point comes in because he would probably be a like for Odegaard. And then in that case, that's one less person for you to have to shuffle because he just slots right in, right?
But he's 17,
but I get but the risk is that he's so I get it. The risk is he's 17. But I agree with you. The bigger picture again is he made this decision consciously, clearly, right? Or Arsenal have made this decision. Maybe Arteta didn't agree with it. Maybe it was an Edu one, which we'll get to in a minute. But this decision was clear. You got rid of those other guys, and you've kept Nwaneri. So, and you didn't buy another replacement. So, if you've left yourself with those cards, you've got to play them at some point, right? I get that the Newcastle one was tough because it's not a good it's a ruckus atmosphere. The midfield as well that he's coming up against will be tough. And I get all those factors, so I don't blame Arteta at all for that. But I do understand the other side of it, and I do understand the Arsenal fans that are saying we should have played Nwaneri. Like at some point, we've got to throw him in. It's always going to be the deep end because he's young, and it's the Premier League. Most teams you play are going to be difficult. So it's a tough one. Unfortunately, it is kind of a lose-lose though, isn't it? At this point, because you put Nwaneri in. He gets over on, like you said, and everyone hammers Arteta for trusting a youngster. You put Trossard in that position, and everyone hammers him because he hasn't, given this star boy a chance. So it's a tricky one. But it only kind of goes this way if you lose, right? If you'd have won, you wouldn't have heard any of this stuff. Let's get into the big thing then around the title race, because now you're 7 points behind Liverpool. Thankfully, City dropped points. They've lost 3 games in a week, which has kind of kept them in touch and distance for you. So what are you like? I think you're 5 points behind them or 4 points behind them. So you're still in touch and distance with them, but I think you've dropped down to 5th now in the table on goal difference behind Chelsea and also Nottingham Forest. A lot of people going early and big on the whole title race is over. Where do you sit on this? I'm guessing you're going to be fairly logical and still say it's early doors, or you're going to shock me. What do you think?
I don't know, man, because I think to say the title race is over, is reducing it to essentially giving us 0 probability of winning it, which I'm not. I'm not going to do that, right? I think there is still a probability that we win it, but I do think it's a low probability, and the more we lose, the lower it gets. So to look at it from a mathematical perspective, we are far less likely to win the league now, being 7 points off the top, than we were last week before this result. And then before the Bournemouth and Liverpool results, we were even, I would say the probability was higher. So in this current run of form, I mean, a couple more games like this, and I would say we're at the point where the probability is literally 0.5% of winning it, because we'll be, 12 points or 13 points off top. So I can't say for sure that we are fully out of the title race already, but I can definitely say that like we haven't got much rope left. Like we've got maybe one or two more losses, and then I think we're out of the title race. So not over yet, but getting dangerously close.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, man. I think you've still got a shot. It's going to be really hard, but I think this season, I think the overall points total of all teams is going to be lower than the last couple of years. I think the all three of the favorite teams are kind of not in top. I think form or at their like most perfect state. I think all three teams are kind of going through a little bit of a not a transition, but going through a little bit of change. Obviously, Liverpool got the new manager. City have got a bit of a smaller squad than usual. You guys have also gone a similar way and kind of narrowed the squad down to more high quality players, but kind of a smaller group as a total. And now, obviously, with the backroom changing happening in the for both City and for you guys, so I don't think any of the three teams is going to run away with it. But I do think, yeah, you're going to have each team's going to have periods where they start dropping points. So you're kind of in that mini period right now. City seem to have timed it. I think it's the exact same time as you. Liverpool haven't quite yet. But I'm sure that will happen at some point in the season, right? I doubt Arne Slot's going to come in and just absolutely steamroll it, but you never know. So I think you're still in with a shot, but you are making life difficult for yourself because you've dropped points in. I guess the Newcastle one is kind of understandable. People could see you losing that, but the Bournemouth one is the frustrating one, and then obviously the draws at home to Brighton. And who else did you draw? I think you drew against someone else at home as well. Those draws, Liverpool obviously. Are going to maybe cost you when it comes to the end of the season. But I get it. The anger is because I think a lot of fans saw potential for your season to get derailed because of the transfer window. So they've kind of just been waiting, I guess, for that moment, or that wobble to validate their points. And that's what's caused kind of like a lot of Arsenal fans or, a group of Arsenal fans to go quite early on it. Let's go on to the last talking point then for you guys. It's not on the match, but it broke, I think, on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, one of the two, that your sporting director Edu, part of the world class duo of Edu and Arteta, will be stepping down. Came completely out of the blue. I don't know, John, if you heard anything, but I didn't hear anything anywhere. I wasn't seeing any rumours about this. It just kind of broke abruptly that he's leaving Arsenal, and then it broke very quickly afterwards that he's going to join. I don't know what their football club group is, but the Nottingham Forest, Olympiacos, and they've got one other club, I've forgotten who it is, group of teams, and he'll be kind of like their head of football or head of sport or whatever. Kind of similar to the Jurgen Klopp role that he took with Red Bull. So, yeah, what do you make of the news, first of all? And are you disappointed to see him go? Because, I think a lot of people are giving Arteta more of the credit, but Edu's also got some of his, has got some flowers over this, 2 years of challenging, where you've done some good transfer business. So, yeah, what do you make of the news, and are you upset that he's leaving?
Yeah, obviously, I think the timing of the news is horrible. Obviously, for Arsenal fans, it's like, oh my god, but what's happening in the background? Are we going to go back to being crap again or something like it? Are we having a breakdown within the structure of the club or something? So I understand why a lot of people are kind of freaking out a bit. But from my point of view, like, I think I heard a couple of fan channels now talk about how there were some rumors of some sort during the summer that Edu was pursuing, or I guess not pursuing, but considering other things, because I think there's maybe not as much growth opportunity for him at Arsenal as there might be in other clubs. And as a result, I think obviously he's been thinking about it. I think probably the timing of everything is just what makes it seem kind of a bit mental, because it's in the middle of the season. Usually these types of things are announced, or people leave, after the end of a contract, or, they leave during the summer or whatever else. They don't typically leave in the middle of the season, as far as I'm aware. So that kind of compounds and makes things a bit weirder. But I mean, from the point of view of am I happy, sad, or whatever else about Edu leaving? Obviously, it is sad because he's an Arsenal. I'm not going to say he's an Arsenal legend because he wasn't as a player, and I don't think he's done enough as a sporting director either to be considered a legend. But he's definitely he's an ex-Arsenal player. He'd been doing a good job since he came in 2019. Him and Arteta appear to have a pretty good relationship with each other, and they've contributed to Arsenal kind of getting out of the mud and going somewhere back to being a decent team again. So, of course, that's sad to see him leave, especially if he's going to go and leave for, what a lot of fans out there are going to make fun of, which is he's kind of going down in terms of stature of club to bloody Nottingham Forest from Arsenal. And I don't think you'd see somebody from Man City. I don't know if you'd see somebody from Man United, Chelsea go and make that kind of move, which from club to club is a step down, but maybe in terms of responsibility and so on is a step up. And I think in terms of money, for sure is a step up. But obviously we're going to get banter from a lot of people as a result, right? But yeah, it is sad. Am I heartbroken? No. I think that there are other sporting directors out there. I think that there are also better sporting directors out there. And I think that, if we've got our head screwed on properly, we will go and find one. And the only thing that saddens me about it is that this, why couldn't Edu have announced this in the summer so we could have gone and tried to get bloody Hugo Viana from Sporting or somebody else before somebody else nabbed him. And in this case, before Man City nabbed him. So that's a bit annoying. But yeah, overall sad, but not heartbroken. I think we can still build on it. And it's just the timing that makes it a bit stinky, really.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I guess you don't normally see this stuff too much because most people's contracts are kind of like ironclad, right? They've either got big release clauses or they've got non-competes that will put them on gardening leave for 12 months or whatever. Kind of like what you saw with Dan Ashworth when we were trying to nab him from Newcastle. So it's a bit weird, isn't it? How this is all transpired. But there must have not been those extreme clauses in Edu's contract, and it must have been a bit more out of faith, which in that case is a bit more annoying. Like you said, the timing. Like, could he have not just waited until the end of the season, and that would give you a good chance as well, and allow you to regroup and kind of do the restructure when you're not in the middle of a season. But yeah, a bit of a weird one, I have to admit. And obviously the banter's flowing, and Nottingham Forest, I know, in terms of a club or a smaller club than Arsenal, they are above you in the table because they're playing unbelievable at the moment, right? Keep winning. Nuno's absolutely got them flying. Ola Aina, the guy who I was ripping
I told you
a couple of days before.
Of the season, also, by the way, you mocked my FPL defence and I had a bunch of Nottingham Forest people in there.
Yeah,
and you thought,
God.
Nuno Ball's not going to do anything. And look at them now.
Yeah, honestly, he's rolled back the clocks, man. I need to, my bad Nuno, because when he was at Wolves at the beginning, he was like this. Like, they were so stubborn. It was so difficult for teams to score against them. They were like clean sheet kings. I didn't believe they had it in them with Forest because, let's be real, under what's his face, Steve Cooper, I was going to call him Droopy for a minute. They were absolutely they were raining goals. Like they conceded so many goals, but he's gone in there, and just like I think that Milenkovic that they signed from Fiorentina, top buy, because him alongside Murillo, that's a really good duo, man. It doesn't look like too many goals are going to get past them. So yeah, big up Forest, man. And now they're going to get Edu. So yeah, let's see how that goes. It's a weird one, isn't it? It's like this football group stuff has just completely just effed things up, hasn't it? Because now you've got people that would. I don't think without this football group stuff, Edu would leave Arsenal, or he might leave for Real Madrid or Barcelona or something like that. But there'd only be a select group of teams that he could leave Arsenal for, right? He's an ex-player. People love him. He's got a good relationship. He clearly had quite a lot of power within the club to run the football side of stuff. Like, he would have just done a David Gill and stayed there for 20 years or whatever, right? But because of this football group rubbish, right, you've got people, it's like giving them a slightly higher ceiling now for a football director. They now think, okay, once I've done that, I can go to a group and manage 4 teams instead. It's like even if the 4 teams are rubbish, like they'll still go and do it because they'll see it as a step up. It's absolute silliness, and I don't personally think these football groups should exist where you've got a company owns 4 or 5 teams. It's completely muddied the waters with the transfers as well, with the sponsorships, everything. It's like City buy the City group by Savio from Brazil, but Man City and their other teams don't have enough FFP room, so they buy him for Troyes, and then they loan him from Troyes to Girona, the other team in their group, and then boom, in 3 years when City have got a bit of FFP room, they buy him from Troyes for 35 million or something like that. So the whole thing is just has made football really tricky, hasn't it? And you guys have been the victims of it now, where they do go into like the Forest group. Let's be honest.
And I think
the Forest group,
like, it's fine if you're doing it across multiple sports, like they do in like America with NBA owners owning also NFL teams or hockey teams or whatever else. Like that's fine, but to own multiple within the same sport, it doesn't feel right. And I don't like it either personally. But I mean, from the point of view of like Edu, I can understand why a person might make that decision, right? Like Arsenal as a club is bigger, but to go to multiple and to be able to control multiple clubs, especially when it's very clear that this Marinakis guy does not give a two shits about bloody FFP or anything else. He's going to do whatever he needs to do to get around them. He is Greek Bowley. So I from a sporting director's point of view, that's lovely. It's like, all right, we're just going to go and spend money and I'm going to look like a baller and I'm going to be able to go and get whoever I bloody want. So I can understand why you'd want to do it, but yeah, it definitely stinks from the point of view of like FIFA, UEFA, the Premier League, whoever else is letting all this stuff happen, because it's very clearly corrupt in my eyes to allow all of that stuff to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely circumventing the rules, and it's just getting into that monopolization type situation. Like, who's to stop, people, buying up, like kind of what City have tried to do, like clubs in like a bunch of leagues, try to build them up to kind of dominate, and then your group obviously looks amazing. The portfolio is crazy if you've got all these teams that are the champions in all these leagues. It's just it shouldn't be allowed. I agree with you, man.